Good morning. My name is Rabbi Kalter, Naftali Kalter. I used to be assistant principal at Arie Crown. I also happen to be your Mora's father, Mrs. Baber's father. And she asked me to speak to you about something that happened 50 years ago, that today is the day we commemorate that very fantastic event. What I just sang are the words from Shemona Esrei, where we daven to Hashem about Yerushalayim. We want Hashem to return to Yerushalayim so that His Shekhinah should be there and we could feel really, really, really close to Hashem. Yerushalayim Ircha Berachamim Toshuv. Your city with compassion, please return. So let me tell you what happened 50 years ago regarding Yerushalayim. 50 years ago regarding Yerushalayim, there were three things that were a very big problem, not just Yerushalayim, but for the Jews who lived in Israel, in Eretz Yisrael at that time. Today, who would go to Eretz Yisrael and not think of davening at the Kosel? It's half the fun. Who would think of going to Eretz Yisrael and not going to daven by the kever where Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, and Leah, Sarah, Rivka, and Leah are buried, our avos and imos, and then to kever Rachel, where Mama Rachel is buried. We go, it's part of the trip to go to daven, pour our hearts out for ourselves, for Klal Yisrael, for people who we know are sick. Could you think of life without that? 50 years ago, the Arabs had those territories, and they wouldn't let Jews go there. There was a place called the Mandelbaum Gate in Yerushalayim. I first came to Eretz Yisrael 2 weeks before the big war, which Baruch Hashem was very, very short and quick, and not so big. I came 2 weeks before that war started, and somebody took me around, and he took me to the Mandelbaum Gate. The Mandelbaum Gate was where you could not go any further. You could see the old city of Yerushalayim. You could see the walls. You could see, but you couldn't go. And then 50 years ago, there was something else that was not very, very good. On top of a cliff, way up north, where they have lots and lots of kibbutzim, farms, Syria owned and controlled all the country, all the way to the edge of the cliff, overlooking all those little farms. So the Rishayim in Syria, the bad Arab people then, whenever they felt like it, would shoot down into those kibbutzim. It was very dangerous. It was not good. In 6 days, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a tremendous miracle. In 6 days, we could go to the Kosel. We could go and daven by our kever of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in Hebron, that great city, Hebron. There was such a great yeshiva there in the 1920s, the Hebron Yeshiva, which still continues, but not in Hebron. And the kibbutzim became safe. It all happened in 6 miraculous days. The first thing you have to understand is that at that time, Eretz Yisrael was a very, very, very small country. And it wasn't like in America we have 400 million people. If we need an army, even if we need an army of 1,000,000 people. That's a small amount of people. So you have an army, and they do what they have to do, and life goes on. School, business, newspapers, life goes on. 2 weeks before the war started, and I came to Eretz Yisrael, everything stopped because everybody was in the army. Because everybody was in the army, I helped out by doing things like loading milk trucks so milk could be delivered so that people could have milk to drink. There was a school for Down syndrome children, and the building needed to be protected before the war. And in Eretz Yisrael, they have these gas balloons instead of piped-in gas for your gas stoves. And if there's a war, they could explode, and it could be very dangerous. And so everybody made sure you fill up these big bags of sand, and you put them around to protect them, and we did that for that school. And we did many other things to help out because there was nobody else there to do anything. And anybody who wasn't in the army, which were very, very, very few people, did whatever they could to help. Finally, after 2 weeks, the war started. Now, what was amazing about this war was that really the Arabs lost the war in 80 hours. Your Mora might help explain this a little better afterwards. But basically, what you have to understand is there are two things that a country needs in order to be strong in fighting a war. It needs lots of brave soldiers who are ready to go march in and fight. But in order to help them fight, they need airplanes overhead. Those airplanes overhead shoot down on the enemy so that these soldiers can move forward and they don't meet a lot of resistance from the other side. So every country, if they're going to win a war in modern warfare, have to have airplanes. And the Israeli Air Force had planned an attack where they were going to secretly sneak into Egypt and destroy all the Egyptian airplanes. Now, on paper, this is almost impossible. Yes, it became possible because the Israeli Air Force was fantastic. They flew those planes like super experts, super flyers. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew exactly where to drop their bombs on the airplanes in Egypt. But when we look back at what happened, there were so many things that could have gone wrong, and everything would have changed. But we know that even though we had a wonderful Air Force and very, very brave Jewish soldiers, but we had the best general in the world looking out for us, the Rebbeinu Shalom. And anybody who looks back at that war and doesn't appreciate that, doesn't feel it, isn't excited about how Hashem looked out for us and saved us. It was almost like in the time of Haman. He saved us so miraculously. In 80 hours, the war should have ended. But again, Hashem wanted us to be able to get Yerushlayim. He wanted us to be able to go to Hebron, to daven at Kever Avos. And he wanted those nice farms in the north to be safe once and for all. So instead of the Egyptians and all the Arab armies saying, we surrender, we give up, we're not going to win this war, stupidly. And when people do stupid things like that, it's only because Hashem puts stupid ideas in their head. There's a concept that Chazal referred to called Leiv Melochim B'Yad Hashem. The hearts of the kings are in the hands of Hashem. And so the kings of the Arab countries, the kings and the leaders, did a real stupid thing. They were going to go and they were going to fight anyway. They didn't stand a chance. In 3 days, The Jewish army was standing by the Kosel, by Har HaBayis, since 1948. 50 years ago. What a celebration. What a chizuk for the entire Jewish world and for Klal Yisrael to know that Yerushlayim. When I started to sing, it's from Shemona Esrei. We say it every day. Yerushlayim. Yerushlayim. Yerushalayim, your city. Yerushalayim is your city, Hashem. We daven for Yerushalayim every day. So can you imagine if we daven for Yerushalayim every day, the simcha that people felt we had Yerushalayim once again? It was amazing. Now, during the war, for those first 3 days in Yerushalayim, a friend of mine and I went up to Har HaBayis. Not Har HaBayis, I'm sorry. We went up to Hadassah Hospital. We went to Hadassah Hospital and we helped with the wounded soldiers that were coming in. But one of the exciting things that was going on is there were old-timers there who remembered the old city in Yerushalayim. So when a jeep would come in with wounded soldiers, they would ask them right away, where were you? Where did this happen? And with each jeep that came in, hour after hour, everybody realized we were getting closer and closer to regaining the Kosel and Har HaBayis. There was a real excitement. Of course, there were lots of wounded soldiers, Nebuch. And yet they were so brave. You had an entire lobby of the hospital filled with wounded soldiers, and you didn't hear anybody complain. And believe me, it hurts when you get wounded. There's a lot to cry about, but you didn't hear anybody complain. They were very brave. They were very strong. Good Jewish boys. And everybody worked hard to try to do their best in that hospital. There were doctors who practically didn't sleep for 3 days straight to take care of all these boys. But they also took care of Arabs. Today, the Goyim in the world spread such sheker about how terrible the Jews are to the Arabs. But doctors who didn't sleep for 3 days made sure that the Arabs that were wounded also lived. We were very nice. We were very good, even to our enemies. That's the real truth. And the war continued, and over time, we captured all that extra land that made Eretz Yisrael a bigger place, a safer place. Now we moved up to the Golan Heights, those cliffs overlooking the farms, and we conquered those areas, and the guns over there were silenced. And now all those kibbutzim and all those farms could live in quiet and peace. And they have for 50 years, basically. All because of this one exceptionally miraculous war that Hashem won for us. And I'm going to tell you a little story. There's a college for people who want to become soldiers, and especially if they want to become important in the army, they want to become generals and captains and lieutenants. And it's the best army college in the entire world. It's called West Point in New York. There was a Jewish boy who was in a class, and they were discussing the history of wars. The idea was they would look and study different wars, and by studying what they were all about, they could learn how to fight a war. Look at the mistake that army made. Oh, we're going to know not to make that mistake. Oh, look at that good move they made. Let's learn from them. But the Jewish student was very puzzled. Jews fought wars, and we won wars. How come, he asked the professor in the middle of class, don't we ever talk about the Jewish wars? So the professor said, see me in my office. Okay, he was a little nervous, this boy. What did I do wrong? I just asked a simple question. But he went to the office. He goes into the office, he sits down. And the professor turns to him and smiles, and he says, "Young man, do you know why we don't teach anything about the Jewish wars? Because you can't learn anything from the Jewish wars, because God, Hashem, fights their wars." And boy, did we see that 50 years ago. And that's what we're commemorating today. That's why we call this special day YOM Yerushlayim. If you know the song, sing it with me. Let's see if we can do one round together. Yerushlayim, have a very happy YOM Yerushlayim. Thank you for letting me join your class. I enjoyed being with you today, and I hope you enjoyed and hope you have the rest of a wonderful day with your wonderful Mora, Mrs. Baver. Take care, everyone.